Welcome to the Sunday special edition of Banfield. I'm so glad to have you here with us. It has been such an incredibly busy week of breaking news, exclusive revelations in the Idaho student murders that we thought it was important to bring you this special report tonight to put together everything that we've collected over the last week so that you won't miss anything if you're following this story. In particular, we were able to find access to a very significant letter that the University of Idaho sent out to the parents of the 4 victims who were murdered at 1122 King Road. And why the letter has been so significant is that because everybody has been wondering, what is the plan for the demolition of that crime scene, of that murder scene? It is a horrendous blight. I think everyone can agree, on the campus and the outer bounds of the University of Idaho, and it has been excruciatingly painful for the kids who are still there, for the staff, for the locals who live there, that house is still standing. And as it stands, it is boarded up with plywood. There is a chain link fence around it. There has been no access to it. A security guard still stands sentinel outside to make sure that no one gets in. So the letter that went out from the university to the parents effectively laid out the protocols for what's ahead, and it is soon. The demolition will be soon, right after the remediation efforts are finished. But the university wanted to make sure that the family still has another opportunity to retrieve their loved ones' belongings, the things that the kids still have in the house that have been in there ever since the murders took place in November. So we're going to outline all that for you on this program tonight. Not only that, but what it means if the demolition goes ahead / when the demolition goes ahead. Not all the parents are on board. Some of the kids' parents agree that the house should come down, and others don't agree that the house should come down. Some are very worried that if a jury wants to go to the scene of the crime to see and hear for themselves, they won't be able to do that. It does happen in other crimes. We've seen it before. In OJ, they went to 2 scenes, OJ's house and also where the victims were killed. But in this particular sense, it has raised some debate. We're going to talk about that as well. And then Bryan Kohberger, if he is convicted of this crime and faces the death penalty, Idaho has made some very profound changes of late. And it is moving fast. That if the death penalty drugs aren't available, the firing squad is. What is that going to look like? How does that get carried out? Just logistically, how do you find the marksman? Who gets the blank? We've got all of that for you on this program. And then, as we like to do, we like to hear from you. We call it Your Theories. We invite you to send in your 30-second on-camera selfies to tell us what you think about certain aspects of a crime, how you think it was carried out, what you think about the prosecution, the defense, or any of the machinations of the case as it progresses. And with this one, hearing that murder scene may soon be razed and demolished, that has a lot of people very concerned about the possibility that a jury visit may not be possible. What that might mean for a conviction or, God forbid, an appeal, as some say. So there's a lot that's on the docket. But I wanted to get for you, word for word, what that exclusive letter from the university to the parents actually said, because it's very thorough, it's very tender, and it's very, very specific. So let's move to the very first story that I told you about, and that was that exclusive letter that we have now obtained that the University of Idaho sent to the parents of all 4 of the victims of the Idaho student murders at 1122 King Road. And it has to do with the future of that home and what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. It's extremely sad because this is this is just it's still a mysterious tomb, if you think about it. So many of the possessions of the kids are still in the home. And the university wanted to address that with the family as well. Not only the plan for the house of demolition and remediation, but also reclaiming what's left. And there is reaction as well from the families, which I'm going to give you in a moment. I just want to read this letter to you, word for word, without any editing. Okay, it begins this way. I am the acting general counsel for the University of Idaho and oversee the legal services for the university. I first want to express my condolences to each of you for the tragic loss that you've suffered. I greatly appreciate the positive manner in which you have interacted with the university in the aftermath of this tragedy. I am writing to communicate to each of you regarding the university's plans for the house at 1122 King Road. As was conveyed to you by Dean of Students Blake Eccles, the homeowner gifted the house to the university with the intent by both parties that it be demolished. Before doing so, we will complete remediation within the house to address biohazards and chemical hazards that exist as a result of the crimes and ensuing investigation. At the completion of the remediation, we intend to have the remediation team gather any items of personal property that do not appear to be contaminated and transfer them to university personnel who will take these items to a secure off-site location for representative members of the families to review and recover items of your family members that you wish to keep. Items not selected will then be properly disposed of. This will not apply to large, bulky items such as sofas, beds, or the like, to the extent that any remain on site. If you have specific items you wish to be on the lookout for, regardless of size, please let me know. If we can locate and retain them for you, we will. We intend to proceed with demolition as soon after completion of the remediation as can be done. We do not yet have a specific date for when this will occur. We will notify you of the demolition date in advance so you are not caught by surprise by media reports. In the interim, we are making every effort to respect the dignity of your loved ones, and our activities will be done outside of media scrutiny as much as possible. The house is currently surrounded by construction fencing. The windows and doors have been securely boarded, and we are not allowing access into the house by anyone not specifically authorized by the university. Anyone authorized to enter the house will be required to agree to strict non-disclosure and will be prohibited from taking photographs or otherwise recording the inside. This communication constitutes the university's formal notice to you of our intention to proceed with remediation and demolition as described above. If you have any concerns with these plans, please contact me by April 3rd of 2023. We will address those prior to proceeding. If you have retained legal counsel, I encourage you to share this communication, notifying you of the proposed plans. You or your counsel may contact the Office of General Counsel via email, that's redacted, or call me at the phone number listed below, which I've redacted, to discuss any concerns or objections that you may have. Once again, I want to express my deepest sympathy and my condolences to each family member. It is my hope that the university's plan to remove the house helps you in your healing. A reply indicating you have received this email would be greatly appreciated, and the letter is signed by the acting counsel at the University of Idaho. So that had to be processed by the family members. They have to either respond, at least to tell them that they've received this email, and then also if they have any concerns about the plans for remediation and demolition, and then if they have any specific items that they would like to point the university to for retrieval. I think you'll probably remember on December 7th, the last time that personal items were taken out of the house, we were present. And it was such an incredibly solemn moment. This was a law enforcement action. They took the personal items out of the house, and they walked those items one by one out to a truck so that they could transport it to a waiting warehouse where the families could come and retrieve them. I think we have some video from back on December 7th. And I'll tell you what, when they brought out the boxes and the suitcases and the golf clubs and the bags of clothing and loaded it into the U-Haul, it was such a sad moment. I'm going to play this for you, but I want you to just know what's happening outside the purview of the camera. The media stayed a long way back on the other side of the road to shoot this, but nobody spoke. The media didn't speak. No one asked questions. The officers who were bringing those items out to load up the U-Haul truck, it was dead silent. It was so solemn. So I'm going to run that moment for you, but just know that we are running it with the existing natural sound. It's just that it was so quiet in observation. Take a look. That was a day that was observed by our senior national correspondent, Bryan Kohberger, who was among the media representatives, staying across the street and watching, observing, but out of respect, staying quiet. Bryan, that was such a difficult time. I had thought that all the items were brought out of the house, and here we learn that there are still more. Do you have any idea how they'll set up this next transfer of property?
Yeah, it was very, very sad, Ashley, just because we had been so into the investigation of the case at that point, and it was just a very human moment then seeing the victim's items brought out. But you'll notice the U-Haul truck, which the police chief was driving, by the way, and it was police officers who were working the case who were bringing the items out, so it was emotional for them too. But you'll notice that U-Haul, it wasn't a very big U-Haul, so it clearly wasn't all of the items that belonged to the kids inside the house. It was just some of them, which explains why there are more items in the house and why likely the families are going to want to retrieve some more of those items. So, couches, we did see the mattresses come out at one point, but couches, other pieces of furniture, all sorts of stuff. Again, you see how small that U-Haul was. You can just imagine all the other items that are still left behind there.
So, Bryan, on December 30th, that was the day that Bryan Kohberger was arrested. Within hours of his arrest, his public defender and Taylor put out a request to stop all remediation, all cleaning. And at that time, I remember us seeing these privacy curtains going up, and it looked as though they were going to empty out, big items, and then that immediately stopped. But there were big items that were still unloaded. What was the progression of that? And what happened with whatever was taken out of the house after the video we just showed?
Yeah, so there was that initial time where you just saw where the chief of police backed the U-Haul in and they took out a number of the personal items and then returned those to the families. Then there was another time that they went to the house and started removing other items. The mattresses were really the most visual thing that we could see. They were putting them in the back of pickup trucks. They were really starting to clear out the house, or at least start the process to do that. And that is when they immediately halted it. The public defender asked for it all to be stopped, which is really, really interesting because they were in the middle of doing it and they just shut the whole thing down. Exactly what was going on behind the scenes was still sort of unclear. It appears perhaps the public defender wanted an opportunity to really look through the house before things were moved around too much. But all of that stuff, before they could get it out, was left inside, which again explains why they now have to go through this process now and remove all the additional items from the house.
I can understand that. I want to end our discussion just with an answer that the university gave us when we asked if this is officially no longer a crime scene, because we have not had that announcement made by the police that it was it a crime scene and has the title transferred. And they kind of gave us a half answer, Bryan. Do you have the letter in front of you, the executive director of communications?
Yeah, I have the quote here, and essentially they said that it is no longer a crime scene, but basically said the house has been fully transferred to the university, and we are able to proceed with our plans to demolish at this point. All parties are aware of our intentions to demolish the building as quickly as possible. And obviously you read the letter, so we know the families received that letter, but it is officially no longer a crime scene. You see it's boarded up. There's still a security car outside, but it fully belongs to the university now. They've said they want to destroy it by the end of the semester, and it seems that that's really like imminent at this point.
Hard to parse it. They didn't give us a really clear no longer a crime scene, but they did say we are able to proceed with our plans, which would indicate that it's no longer. Bryan Kohberger, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ashley.
So some of the family members have told me they are very upset with the concept of the demolition taking place before the trial. They are concerned that if the jury wanted to go to the home to take, a view for themselves, listen for themselves, look for themselves between rooms, et cetera, that they won't be able to do that. So several of the family members said that they were concerned about this and that they actually reached out to the prosecutor about it to ask that it not happen. Other family members have said that's not how they feel. So there is a split among the family members about this potential demolition. And I only say potential because a court can always come in and compel. And I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. But first, I want to bring in a couple of people who know a lot about how the public is responding to this. Christine Cameron and Alina Smith are the moderators of a very popular Facebook group, University of Idaho Murders Case Discussion. The group members, and I think, ladies, I think you're past 250,000 group members on the Facebook group. They have a lot of different opinions about not only the various aspects of the investigation and the prosecution of Bryan Kohberger, but they also have a very deep concern for the families who've been left behind. So Christine Cameron and Alina Smith, I'll put this out to you, Christine, first. What do you think that the general consensus is about the house coming down among your group?
I think that most of the students on our page feel that the house is creepy. It's spooky. They don't like walking by the house and the constant daily reminder. They say it's triggering and they can't heal and it's difficult to move on. And many members on our page agree with their sentiments. However, the flip side of this is many worry about the ramifications of tearing down the house prior to the trial.
So, Alina, jump in on that point. What do they say? What are their specific concerns about the demolition prior to trial?
Hi, Ashley. I agree with Christine. That is the biggest consensus on our page. And everybody's saying that, I mean, it's pretty split, but I think most of it's like 60% towards have them leave it for the trial because, I mean, if you think back to all the other trials like OJ and even Moselle, Casey Anthony, they wandered and looked at the sites of the crime scene, and it's a lot to see the visual part of it, and it helps with the jury decision. And I think I was actually very surprised when you said that they don't consider it a crime scene. I did not know that. So when you said that just now, I was like, oh my gosh, to me, that's shocking. So I think that was too premature, and that needs to be reconsidered. And like you mentioned, they can still, attest this in court, and I hope they do because it's very important.
I have to say, honestly, I am parsing the words of the university as we spoke with them, and I was not 100% clear on it because it literally says this: the house has been fully transferred to the university, and we are able to proceed with our plans to demolish at this point. They didn't answer the specific question we had, which was, has it now been declared free from being a crime scene? I just assumed that that's what that meant. We are able. So it's still, I think it's still up in the air with nuance. I'm not 100% sure, but I do want to ask you, Christine, jump in on this. We had reporting from the parking lot that there were kids coming by and doing TikTok dances. I mean, and not just once, that it was a repeated affair. There have been plenty of looky-loos, crime tourists who have come. Some of them are really quite lovely, and they leave a memorial or flowers behind. Others, pose and drive by, take pictures, and then, of course, the TikTok dancers. How does your group weigh in on what they're seeing in terms of the activity out in front of the house?
Ashley, I think that this case has been so big that so many people are interested and invested in this story. And unfortunately, they want to be a part of it. And seeing the house, walking by, making videos, it's gross, it's disrespectful, but everybody, whether it's positive or negative, wants to be a part of this. And I would say that a majority of the people on our page don't condone that. They don't think that that's respectful in any way, shape, or form.
It is.
And
it's shameful. It's not just disrespectful and gross. It is so shameful, right?
Taking down the house. I also feel that it only benefits Bryan because removing this so prematurely, you don't know what, the jury would want to see.
Yeah. I have only about 10 seconds left. Alina, is there a consensus among your group about what they'd like to see happen with the actual real estate, with the site?
Yes. So we did put that question out there, and I did want to mention the best idea that I read, and it was a satellite station for campus police or local police, and to include a center for personal safety education. And I thought that was a great.
That is delightful, and thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it, and thank you to your Facebook member that posted that. And I also have to thank the two of you for being. What's that?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. There were a ton of ideas that were, but we thought this was by far the best one that we read.
It's excellent. And I also want to commend the two of you for being so incredibly respectful and keeping this discussion group civil. I know that it's been difficult at times. So thank you for doing the work that you've done and allowing people to share. They care. A lot of them really care a lot.
Thank you. We definitely tried. It's been very testy the last couple of months, and it's because there's not been a lot going on. And, once the hearing comes up and hopefully the trial, we'll be back on track and keep things a little bit more serious.
Well, it's nice to speak with you both in person. Thanks for doing this tonight. Appreciate it. And I hope we have a discussion in the future, too.
Thanks for having us on, Ash.
There is a raging debate across this country, and it's almost 50-50 for and against the death penalty. But if there is a death penalty, there's an even bigger debate on how to carry it out. And Idaho has had the debate and solved it. They've said that the firing squad will be the backup if the death drugs aren't available, which means if Bryan Kohberger is convicted of murdering those 4 kids in Moscow, Idaho, he could face the death penalty. And if the sentence is death, he could face the firing squad. So many questions about how it's carried out. Who are the marksmen? Who gets the blank? Who gets the live rounds? Are there ramifications for those who actually take part in the shooting? And what does it actually look like when they are strapped to the chair? We're going to run through the whole thing for you coming up next. So I'm going to give you a warning right off the bat on this segment. If you are squeamish and if you are uncomfortable with talk about violent death and violent death methods, I'm going to give you a break, give you a chance to turn it down. But I'm about to talk about something that's quite disturbing. Some people would find upsetting, offensive, wrong, inhumane. Other people would find exactly what this country needs. And it is the firing squad. And I'm going to tell you exactly how it works because now it is real. And it is coming to a death chamber potentially near you if you're in Idaho and a couple of other states as well. So it has happened before. It was a choice by an inmate named Ronnie Lee Gardner. And here's how it worked. When he decided he would choose the firing squad, he was hooded and he was strapped to a metal chair. And then there was a target that was taped to his heart. He faced a wall 25 feet away. And behind the wall were 5 anonymous marksmen. Each of the marksmen took a shot at Ronnie Lee Gardner. 4 of them had bullets. 1 of them had blanks. Last night I said it was the opposite, 4 blanks and 1 shooter, but it is actually 4 shooters, 1 blank. And within 2 minutes, Ronnie Lee Gardner was pronounced dead by the Utah Department of Corrections. This is the backup method for Idaho now. And this is the way Idaho condemned could end up meeting their fate, like Bryan Kohberger, maybe Chad Daybell, if they're convicted. An Idaho defense attorney says this is inhumane and it is barbaric. Some others say it traumatizes the witnesses or even those who actually are the marksmen and have to carry it out. A certified death investigator we've spoken to says it is the most humane method, actually, because it is, number 1, fast, and number 2, effective, no chance for botching it. And that's not always the case with the drugs. I want to bring in Richard Dieter. He is the executive director of the Death Penalty Information Center, and he's also a civil and human rights attorney. Richard, thanks for being with me. I'm always mixed about this because I have heard horror stories about what we thought was humane, and that's lethal injection. And I hear the opposite about the firing squad. Where do you weigh in?
Well, lethal injections have become very problematic in the U.S. They used to be very routine, and people went to sleep and were executed fairly quickly with little controversy. But the drug companies have refused to sell their drugs for these executions, and the doctors and nurses don't want to participate in executions as well. So you have a procedure with experimental drugs, unproven drugs, administered by people with not the experience you might find in a hospital, but people who work in the correctional facility. So things are not going well with lethal injection. It has its own problems. Of course, being shot is also a rather horrible experience to go through as well, I'm sure.
Can I ask you, the method by which you die, if you're shot and the target is over your heart, does it stop your heart or do you bleed out? Because I have heard it both ways, that it took 2 minutes to pronounce Ronnie Lee Gardner dead. And I've heard that it's a bleeding process. It doesn't seem like it would be.
Well, I am no doctor to know that precisely, but I can say that there have been problems with firing squads. They're used occasionally in the military and on battlefields, and sometimes the heart is missed, and of course then it's bleeding out. Or sometimes a person, goes on breathing and, is not quite dead despite being shot. And we know that happens in society outside of the firing squad. So things can go wrong. But I think that the biggest problem is the shock, what we're asking victims' families to go through, to watch someone else be shot by 5 people while their family of the person being shot is also standing by, and you blow them away with 5 rifles. That is not going to sit well with anyone, regardless of what happens to the individual, the defendant, who's the person here.
Right. I suspect we're still, fluid in the death penalty in this country, and it will more than likely end up as a Supreme Court, debate, but we'll have to have you back. And certainly as this moves its way through Idaho as well. Richard Dieter, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
There is clearly so much for Bryan Kohberger to think about. And it might be a good thing because he is in solitary. He's in protective custody. He is locked up alone. He doesn't have any contact with other inmates in the Latah County lockup. That is in the bottom floor of the Latah County Courthouse. It's only 2,000 square feet or so for all the inmates who are in there, somewhere around 19-ish, give or take, who comes in, who goes out. Bryan Kohberger doesn't move. All the other inmates get to talk amongst themselves and be in a pod. Bryan is alone. But he does have a TV, he does have a remote, and he does get 1 hour of free time. So what does he do with that 1 hour of free time every day? We have some surprising insight from our sources close to the jail and the case. And coming up after the break, you're going to learn what his everyday has been like and what it will be for the next several months. We've just been learning so much about this life of his in this little tiny 2,000 square foot jail. And yet again tonight, a dump of information about things that he is doing inside that jail, how he is changing, how he is behaving. For starters, he is apparently losing weight. We're told by our sources in the jail that he is, over the last, I guess it's now been almost 3 months, right? He went in early January, February, March, has been taking off a significant amount of weight. Maybe that vegan diet not going so well. Maybe he doesn't like the food. Maybe he's trying to lose weight. Whatever it is, he's losing weight. He's also found God or Jesus or, I don't know, someone, because he yet again went to Mass yesterday, being Sunday. He's allowed to go. It's also a time when he gets human contact, kind of, not really, but kind of, because in the multipurpose room, also known as the library, also known, well, a bit as the gym, but that's changed, he gets to sit with other inmates for the first time, gets to be in the same room as other people, but he's not allowed to make contact with them. So he chose to go to church again on Sunday, yesterday. The witness, the source tells us that he walks around a lot smiling, and as though he has not a care in the world. That was the description, quote, not a care in the world, and appears to be getting a lot of sleep, because what else are you going to do, right? You're in max lockup. You have your meals in your cell. You're only allowed outside for an hour a day. So he's getting a lot of sleep. The TV that he has, we are told now, is actually positioned just outside the bars of his cell. It's his own TV, and he gets a remote, but it's actually outside the bars of the cell. So he's having to watch his TV through the bars. But we are told that the tablet that he has an app on it, and for 5 cents per minute, he can watch older movies. So you do the math on that and figure out where that money might be coming from, or if he has it, or if he's spending it. But he does have access to older movies on a tablet at 5 cents per minute. via that app. We're also told that the pull-up bar and the push-up bar that was located in the library as part of the gym facilities, they've been taken out. We don't know why, but the pull-up and push-up bars have been removed from the library. We're also standing by for the documents, so I just want to remind you that at any moment, if they drop, we're going to get you up to speed on that. As far as the firing squad, we're also told that in Idaho, there is already a group of officials looking into constructing a firing squad facility at a cost of $750,000. Department of Corrections, though, very concerned about trying to get people to act as the firing squad because of the psychological damage it can do to the people who actually hold the guns. Okay. At this point, I want to show you the 15-second video that Autumn Gonzalez posted on her social media, updating how she's feeling about being living in the wake of the death of her older sister, who she looked up to so much. And if I can run that video, I'm going to read for you what the printing says on it. I can't play the music. It's a copyright issue, but I can show you the video. She says, "Remembering I have an older sister when stuff gets hard, I'll be in denial forever. What about the plans we made?" She's been posting a lot, sharing photos of the two of them together and sharing their online chats as well. And you may remember that they both had an older sister named Olivia who just had a brand new baby. She named Theodora Maddie K. Stevenson in honor of both Maddie and Kaylee. I want to bring in Bryan Enton now, our correspondent, who's been at the forefront of the reporting on this story. And we should remind our viewers, Bryan, that we are awaiting those documents. Do we have any idea what we're going to get in the document dump? Like what kind of warrants with information and how redacted they're going to be?
We don't know exactly what's going to be in the documents, Ashley. We assume that it'll be search warrants like the last time there was a document dump. We got an indication that the documents might be coming on Friday. That didn't happen, so it's possible they could come tonight. Basically, the judge, we have learned, is signing off on new redactions, that these new documents will come out. But the way the process works, they have to go through the Supreme Court of Idaho's website, and then they get posted there. So it really could come at any moment.
Okay, Bryan, the other question I wanted to ask you is about this new legislation. This is like, it's earth-shattering, it's jaw-dropping to think. If Bryan Kohberger is watching the news or getting any news headlines, maybe even a newspaper, who knows, the headline in Idaho is going to be that the legislature passed the possibility of a firing squad. But take me through the nuances of it and how it could actually come to pass. If Bryan Kohberger is convicted, it's a death penalty case. If they seek the death penalty and if sentencing goes forward, the jury has to agree, judge has to agree. How could that actually happen? What has to happen for firing squad to kick in?
Well, it's interesting because a lot of people didn't think this would happen. When I was filling in for you one night, we interviewed a lawyer from Idaho who said, I don't think it'll ever get that far. Well, guess what? It's now gotten that far. It's made it through the legislature. All that has to happen now is the governor has to sign off. And the issue here is they've got lethal injection right now in Idaho, but there has been a shortage of the medications that are used for the lethal injection. Such a shortage that there's been one case where a man was on death row and they've had to delay the execution because they haven't had the medicine. That is why this new bill came up. That is why it has now been passed. If there is a medication shortage and they don't have the medicine they need for the lethal injection, if this gets signed off by the governor, then they can use the firing squad. So, if it makes it all the way through, and if Bryan Kohberger is sentenced to death, again, a big if, we're just early on in the process, basically there would have to be a shortage of that special medicine that they use in the lethal injection, and then the firing squad would come into play.
It's remarkable because that has been one of the reasons so many lethal injections have been put off, executions have been put off, is because of the availability of the drugs. And so now this is a second backup. Looks like it would be instantaneous and there would not be that delay in time. But it's a big question. I think we're going to have to do a lot more conversation about it because it does require a number of people to actually be part of it. Typically, most of them have blanks. One of them doesn't, but nobody knows which one has the blanks. But there's a lot to it. So Bryan Enton, thank you. Appreciate the reporting on this. A lot of people have a lot of opinions when it comes to the death penalty, lethal injection, and certainly the firing squad. And a lot of people have a lot of opinions when it comes to what should happen to 1122 King Road. This is the point in the program where we are thrilled to hear from you. We love getting your theories. We always ask you to take a selfie, 30 seconds or less, send it in, and we like to put you on the program. And right after the break, you're going to hear a number of different theories from a number of different viewers about the possibility that that house might come down. It means a jury can't visit, and that can be troublesome. What if it stymies the case? Might something happen before then? Can the prosecutor compel the university to preserve that scene? There are so many questions and so many theories coming up after the break. Lauren Matthias and Tony Bruschi are going to join us, and so will you. See you in a moment. I have an update for you on Bryan Kohberger with the Latah County Jail. We've been talking to a lot of inmates and people close to the case, and we have found out that in the library, there are plenty of law books. We also have found out that he can take books back to his cell. So as a criminologist, is he reading law books, preparing for his own case? Has he switched from criminologist to wannabe lawyer? Fascinating to know, though, that he doesn't get a lot of time out of his cell in the library or rec. So to take those books into the cell means he can keep on reading, even if he's not in the library. Can't always do that at every jail. We also got news this week from the University of Idaho. They sent a letter to the parents of the kids who were killed at 1122 King Road with the plans for demo and also for retrieving items. And a lot of people are upset about it because some people think that there should be maybe a jury view opportunity. I want to bring in Lauren Matthias. She's the host of the Hidden True Crime podcast, and Tony Bruschi, who's the host of the podcast Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi. This is Viewer Theories, guys. And so the very first theory I want to throw to is Gina Feddersen from St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands, who wants to have a comment about what I just mentioned. So take a look.
Hi, Ashley. In regard to the Bryan Kohberger case, I don't feel that the home should be demolished. We should respect the family's wishes, as many of them have come forth in opposition of that. Let's wait until June. Let's see what happens in June, what information is uncovered and shared, and take it a step at a time.
So, Lauren, some family members agree, some family members don't agree. What do you think about what Gina has to say?
I think she makes a solid point. I mean, why not wait maybe until the trial? At the same time, though, I think there are so many students that would like to move on, and the idea of perhaps a memorial garden or something that could bring a little bit more peace to the campus might be a good thing for the students.
Okay, Tony, this next one comes from Amber Getze in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and it's actually more of a question, so let's have a listen.
Hi, Ashley. My name is Amber, and I was just wondering, with Bryan Kohberger not having much human contact, do you think that Professor Ramsland has reached out to him about a possibility of a book? And do you think that maybe he's agreeing to talk with her? Or do you think maybe he's just waiting, or she's waiting until after the trial, so no information hurts him before then?
Super interesting. Tony, what do you think? Dr. Ramsland being the famous criminologist, what do you think?
There could be the possibility of the book, but I would imagine at this point, if there is that in existence, that's going to get shut down very quickly, or any proceeds of that book going to the direction of any sort of victims or things of that nature once this gets settled. But there will inevitably be many books about this case at the end of the day. As far as what Kohberger is involved in, I think that's still, kind of up in the air.
All right, I'm going to end with Lisa from East Lansing, Michigan. This is her comment on Kohberger's defense. Take a listen.
Hey, Ashley. I think Bryan will try and explain away any DNA evidence by saying he was previously in the house for a party, but he'll never admit guilt even if it becomes completely obvious he did it.
I think that is such a great point. Lauren Matthias and Tony Bruschi, I cannot wait to see what opening statements are in this case, because it's going to be intriguing no matter what. Thank you both for this Friday night appearance, and I hope to see you again soon.
Thanks, Ashley.
We love hearing from you. Do not stop sending us those incredible videos. In the meantime, there is something that we have been waiting on. The Idaho courts promised us on a Friday night, I don't know, days and days and days ago, that they would drop a big batch of new documents. Yes, there's a gag order. They're trying to walk the fine line and at least drop items of significance that have been cleared. Can't affect the defense, can't affect the prosecution, can't affect any witnesses. It's the document dump they've been promising for days, and now we are expecting to get it in the next few days, maybe even tomorrow. So coming up after the break, we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then there is also something I want to let you know about with regard to what the parents are asking of the University of Idaho with regard to the home where their children died. And it's pretty interesting and it's profound. And also, I'm always sad when I hear about these things. We're back right after this. Welcome back. We are awaiting some of the first new information on the Idaho student murders in quite some time. It is great when there is sunshine. I call sunshine the best disinfectant. When there is a public process and all of a sudden a gag order makes it not so public, we like to know that there is every effort made by public officials to make sure that the public actually does play a part in prosecutions. Otherwise, it's a little like Iraq. You don't want to, really, you don't need to have silent prosecutions in a country that has great jurisprudence. So we're awaiting the big document dump, and we have a team standing by to parse through it and let you know all of the information and affidavits in the Idaho murder case. Not only that, some specific requests that have been made from the parents to the university about some of the items that are still in that home. The university said, let us know if there's anything specific, and we will do our best to make sure. Well, now we're finding out a little bit more about what some of those requests are. And then in the Lori Vallow case, we are 1 week away from her trial. And boy, is there a lot that is coming to light right before trial. You're going to hear some of the specific conversations between Chad and Lori, texting before Tammy was even dead. And then you're going to learn about Chad Daybell's life as a gravedigger. That is not a joke. Thank you for being with us this Sunday night. We'll see you right back here, 10 p.m. Eastern for Banfield tomorrow night.